My name is Ross Sutherland, and I'm a writer, and I write predominantly poetry, which I kind of do on stage, and publishing books, and I also kind of do online projects as well. I think I first got a passion for language from my grandparents, who they always encouraged me to write poetry. My grands used to really love writing nonsense verse, and so when I moved from Scotland to England when I was a kid, I used to write poetry to sort of send back to her, and like nonsense verse, better than writing like a letter and stuff like that. It was just a nice way of keeping in touch. Themes are always exactly the same. I think we're dealing with the same sort of things, like themes of all art, which are themes of like identity and and society and kind of responsibility and relationships between us and the world around us. Those things are still the same, but the tools by which we can express them are like constantly changing, and I quite like the idea that poetry doesn't live forever. It exists in the moment that you write it, and maybe 2 weeks later it's meaningless. Those kind of cultural references of past, the thing you made it on is obsolete. But I think there's a responsibility to keep going back to those themes and doing them again. I think changes in technology have changed the way that I write. I mean, the way that I construct a sentence on a computer screen is different to the way I would kind of construct it on the page. Just the idea of cutting and pasting is this kind of tool that we've just absorbed quite accidentally. I can't remember who said it, but like someone said that this current generation, it's like, we've become these huge managers and facilitators of text without even sort of realizing that we do it. And that, I think, impacts the way that we read and write. I'd say one thing that it's definitely done, I think it's made us much more active editors. If you think about the way that, like we may take a text from somewhere else, and then we kind of copy it, and then we paste it, say like into sort of something else, and maybe we edit that text as we kind of do it, or maybe we take a sentence out of that, and then we kind of put that as like a status update. We're constantly taking text from other places, and we're kind of moving it around. And so I think that idea of being sort of administrators of text and being more playful with it, treating it like a material which you can kind of warp and shape and sort of change. I think that kind of stuff's really fascinating, and that's something that we've become a lot more adept at, accidentally. I think when I work with school kids, they are really engaged. They're able to sort of engage with some quite difficult sort of avant-garde poetry, because in fact, in a certain way, they're much more used to the idea of language being broken up and kind of reassembled through this kind of cut and paste culture than, say, than I think probably you were if you went to school, like 20, 30 years ago. And I think that's interesting.